Call the meeting to order. All right, it is 8:32. I'm going to call the I'm going to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. We do have some internet hiccups happening, so please be patient, and we'll wade through this. Madam Clerk, are we in compliance with the open meetings law?
We are.
The meeting agenda has been posted. Is there any questions from the committee on the agenda? Hearing no questions, I'm going to do a roll call. And I'll have the committee members state their name for the record. Chuck, you start us out.
Chuck Van Etten here.
Schluter.
Dale Slater.
Ed Peters.
Ron Buckle.
Jim Slender. Let the record reflect we have a quorum, we have full attendance. As we proceed forward, I want to introduce our newest member to the committee. As we knew from last month that Ellen Dennis, the longtime representative for District 15, had resigned for personal reasons, and at the October full county board meeting, Mr. Peters was nominated and approved to replace Ms. Dennis's term. So, Mr. Peters, if you want to introduce yourself.
Good morning. Hope it's still morning. My name is Ed Peters, and as was stated, I'm trying to occupy or take over the role of that Helen Dennis so admirably filled. I live in the town of Draper, so the very far eastern part of Sawyer County, almost Price County, but not quite. And been there for 15 years and served on the town board for 10 years. I guess that's about it.
Okay. So for the purpose of today's meeting, when the various departments are reporting, can you just state your name for Mr. Peters' benefit? And then we can go forward. That's the modification of introductions in the Zoom era. So hearing no comments on the agenda, we're going to now move to public comment. Is there anybody who is here or on the internet or on the phone that wishes to address the committee at this time? How are we doing with that, Mr. Paulson?
No hand raised.
Do we have anybody who's on there that? Jesus. All right, moving on. Minutes from the previous meeting. Has the committee had a chance to review the minutes from the October meeting?
I have, and I make a motion to approve as presented, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I have a motion for Mr. Buckholz. I have a second for Mr. Schluter. In discussion, is there any comments or any changes or modifications to the minutes? Hearing no discussion, Mr. Van Etten, do you have anything you wish to add to that?
I do not.
With that, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Moving now to number 6, the budget discussion. For today's discussion, I want to make sure that everyone understands that Mr. Keith and Mr. Hopper is available on the phone. Mr. Keith and Mr. Hopper are away right now dealing with some personal issues, and so it's up to us to carry the last steps to get this budget across. Mr. Hopp's available for questions. The thing I want the committee members to be aware of is this is the work that Mr. Keith and Mr. Hopp have done to put together the budget for public safety. So all the different committees that report to this committee, all the different departments that report to this committee have submitted their budget, and this is the recommendation for this committee to take going into the November 5th meeting. And so my charge then to the committee members is to make yourself familiar with this budget, with these numbers, because it's our responsibility to represent these departments at the full meeting so that we can get our 2021 or 2021, 20 something, there's too many 20s in that, budget approved. So with that, from the committee, do I have any questions about the budget discussion? Mr. Peters, are you aware of what our processes are, given the fact that this is your very first day?
I think I'm learning, but I guess a little review would be helpful for me.
Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. Mr. Hoff, when you have an opportunity, can we email Mr. Peters? I'm assuming that we have your email accounts that's all set up. Can we email Mr. Peters the budget and then,
Yeah, I don't know if he got one at the last board meeting. We did hand out, the full budget at the board meeting. If he doesn't have that, we can certainly get that to him. And then, Mr. Peters, if you have any questions, and any board member, if you have questions, feel free to call either myself or Mike Keefe, and we can answer questions, and we can handle anything today that you have questions about as well.
So Mr. Peters, essentially what in a nutshell is, if you look on the agenda, we have about 7 or 8 different departments that provide services to the county. Every year we need to prepare a budget. I'm gonna sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but there's different sources of funding that the county receives that is then allocated to the various departments. Sheriff's Department is probably one of the larger ones. Our ambulance, child support, and then some of the support services for the district attorney's office, the judge's office, and all that, all receive support from the county. And that support can only be distributed once that budget is approved by the county board. And so over the various, starting in essentially July, the various departments submit the request to Mr. Hoff, who works with Mr. Keefe, then who assemble the numbers, and then they work through, they get the original request, then they pare that down, almost always inevitably to try to overcome a budget deficit. And through magic that remains a mystery even to us to this day, Mr. Keefe and Mr. Hoff put together a budget that overcomes usually a deficit that has 6 figures to it, with the decimal point at the end of those 6 figures. And then it comes to October when those final numbers are presented, and then November is the responsibility of the county board then to review and approve that with final allocation of dollars. And it's usually that last year's budget was something like $30 million. And so we have something similar to that coming up in the November meeting. So if you have an opportunity, review that just so that you can be informed when we have these discussions, because it's going to we'll have a public presentation. The public can come in and ask questions about the budget. They have input in terms of what our final vote would be. And then so the public hearing is for input on the budget, and then on the November 10th meeting is when the final budget then is subject to a vote by the full board. Mr. Hoff, was that anywhere close to what the process is?
That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on any discussion or any questions on 2021 budget? Mr. Chuck, do you got any questions?
I do not.
Any comments?
Not at this time.
Anything else from the committee? Okay, moving on. Emergency management report. Ms. Sanchez, you with us?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. I'm en route, so I'm probably going to lose connection. Are there any questions regarding my report?
Has the committee a chance to review Ms. Sanchez's report? Chuck, you got any questions for Ms. Sanchez?
I do not.
Ms. Sanchez, is there any highlights that you want us to be made aware of?
Just COVID, and our decon has moved to the Hayward Nursery so we can get our staff out of the elements, and that'll be operational in about a week.
Okay.
That's it.
Is there any highlights from the communication specialist report that that the committee needs to be made aware of, Ms. Sanchez?
Nope, we're just moving forward with everything on time. I think the sheriff or Jeff Johnson could fill you in a little bit more on that.
Okay. Thank you for your report, Ms. Sanchez, and yes, drive safely. Moving on.
Thank you very much.
Moving from number 7 to number 8. Your Honor, you have the floor. Judge's report.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. There's not a lot to report other than the last meeting we were at. I indicated that we had a heavy jury trial calendar this month. If we had had a jury trial today, we had it scheduled. This assembly, we would have needed to use the assembly room for the overflow of the jurors per our operating plan mandated by the Supreme Court. But thankfully, yesterday we received word that the trial had settled. So we've been able to avoid the heavy burden that we had originally scheduled. I signed a warrant as of yesterday and today. There was another death in Sawyer County that's supposedly linked to heroin. I think that's not confirmed yet, but that's based on the warrant that I signed. That's a good bet. So I guess the report from the judge's office is that we still are dealing with meth and heroin cases. People are still dying from meth and heroin on a regular basis. And so as Ms. Sanchez indicated, it's COVID, but we still have a dramatic impact of meth and heroin that we all are justifiably or not justifiably, that's not I'm not going to offer an opinion one way or the other, but there's still a huge problem that existed before COVID and that still is existing now. November, I think we have a few jury trials scheduled in November, but we'll see whether or not those come off or not. The clerk's office is still doing the best that it can, dealing with out-of-county judges and scheduling. They have jury trials that are scheduled in Sawyer County. So far, it's been being handled very well, but that's obviously because some of the jury trials have come off. But I guess that's basically it.
Any questions for Judge Yapple? Chuck, you got any questions for the judge?
I do not. Thank you.
All right, Your Honor, thank you for your report. Clerk of Court's report. We have a report that was submitted. Is the clerk online? He is not. Okay. Is there any questions on the clerk of court report? Chuck, you got any questions on the clerk's report?
I do not.
All right. Her report is submitted. District Attorney's Office report. District Attorney's not present. Is he available online? He is not. Okay. Moving on now to child support. We do have a report from the Child Support Agency. Is there any questions on the report from any questions on the report that's submitted by the director? Chuck, you got any questions on child support?
I do not.
I need to be careful how I word that question. So. All right, moving on to the Sheriff's Department.
I'll start off by welcoming Mr. Peters to the County Board of Supervisors. As the judge mentioned too, with the fatalities we've had with drug overdoses, as further down on the agenda, the resolution for the cooperative law enforcement agreement with the tribe, with the coroner's report relevant to that. This, if it, in all indications are, this is a drug overdose fatality, that will be the 11th in Sawyer County to date this year, drug overdose fatality. With that, I'll yield to the chief.
Have the dispatch report. Dispatch supervisor Corey Sully did apply for and received a $2,000 grant from Walmart. The grant is going to be used to purchase monitors, videos, and computer equipment to monitor the courthouse cameras, school cameras, and the the sheriff department cameras. Earlier, October 21st, the sheriff, dispatch supervisor Corey Sully, Nate Johnston, and I met with North Memorial regarding emergency medical dispatch. They are willing to do that for us. We have some contract stuff to work out. Right now, there's no cost for that service, so they'll provide the pre-arrival instruction for basically like cardiac events, strokes, traumas, severe lacerations, etc. This is something that is required by the state. I believe it goes into effect in June of 2021. Total number of calls dispatch received is up a little bit from last October. And the calls for service are actually down a little bit from last year. So things are starting to slow down a little bit.
Any questions for the chief deputy? Mr. Slater?
When that takes effect, what effect may or may not happen to the budget?
The emergency medical dispatch?
Yeah.
Right now, they're providing that service free. I kind of got out of the discussion that they're starting to take on a lot of these. So what happens in the future, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. That was what I was afraid of.
Chuck, you got any questions for the chief deputy?
I do not. Thank you.
Peters? No. Thank you. Moving on, patrol.
As the chief said, our call volume is starting to slowly go down. We had a total of 820 calls for service for our officers for the sheriff's department. That is down from September, August, and July totals. Again, going back to school has helped people keep out of trouble a little bit. And with people returning back to their home areas from vacation, already taking effect of that too. I want to mention also that I'm generating our traffic grant numbers from last year, or from the past grant year, and we've had a total of approximately 1,700 traffic contacts, as opposed to 1,100 traffic contacts from the previous grant year. So our time out there and our contact with the public have increased. Unfortunately, we still have fatalities that have happened, and it hasn't put a curve on that much. We also were awarded the Bulletproof federal grant to reimburse us approximately $3,600 for body armor that we purchased for this past year. That's all I have.
Any questions for Lieutenant? You got any questions for Lieutenant?
I do, real quick, just so I'm tracking. We have 11 traffic fatalities to date. There were no more since the last meeting.
No, there were none.
Okay, and then the sheriff said that we had 11 heroin deaths. Is that correct?
As far as I'm aware, there is, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Moving on now to the jail lieutenant.
My report is attached on there. As you can see, compared to the September, our average daily population is down slightly. And year to date is down from this time of last year. That's been primarily COVID related, with the jail, accepting felony and mandatory misdemeanor arrests. There's also some exceptions. The electronic monitoring number on here, actually, after I submitted this report yesterday, went up to 2, and it will go up to 4 by the end of today, potentially 3 for sure, probably a 4th. And that's with tubers coming in and sitting the 2 days that they have to passing UA. I will add that on October 8th, that was our date that we had set months ago for DNA submissions for some of the complaint bookings. And I had extra staff in, and jail staff booked. Most of them were booking releases. Some of them were reporting to serve a sentence, but they booked in roughly 40 people in one day. So it was a very, very busy day.
Any questions for the jail lieutenant?
I do.
Buckles?
What's the procedure for sanitizing? You guys do any COVID sanitizing in there?
Yep, the maintenance goes around. They clean and disinfect all the high touch areas multiple times a day. They have a Kyvac machine that they can go in with the disinfectant, and clean out any holding cells, any of the bathrooms, any of the cells in there. Those are done typically once a week. They'll go through with the Kyvac machine to do some of the holding cells, but then again, it depends on who's in there, if they have any symptoms, anything like that.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the jail lieutenant? Chuck, you got any questions for?
I do not.
Thank you for your report. We got the animal control report that's been submitted. Is there any questions regarding that? Next, we have a resolution presented by the sheriff. Sheriff, you want to speak to this one, or how do you want to handle this?
It's basically an annual resolution here that to maintain the grant that we have received annually here. It's a cooperative grant supporting the improvement of law enforcement on tribal land there, where we support a deputy to assist the tribe with law enforcement. It's last year it was just over $50,000 grant.
So I have two questions. One is there's two typos in the resolution. First one is under the third whereas, the computer programming made it a copyright symbol instead of part of our subsection C. And then under the resolution component, it just spells Lacutere incorrectly. It says Black Court Order, but court, it just Lacutere. So those two things those are minor changes, are not substantive. The second question I have, Sheriff, is I was asked if the conservation wardens that operate on the tribal reservation, are they recognized as law enforcement?
That's a state of Wisconsin issue.
Right.
My understanding, they're fully certified.
They are. They're actually both. They both carry certificate.
Yep.
Both serve as law enforcement officers in a different capacity.
Yep.
So is that a bar against any kind of recognition between Sawyer County and the tribe's conservation wardens?
No, and we use them for mutual aid as well.
So there's nothing in this resolution that would exclude a tribal conservation warden from being asked or providing any kind of mutual aid or any kind of cooperative agreement? Because it just says the tribe's law enforcement. So it doesn't specify police or conservation. I just want to make sure that there's a clear understanding about that.
Yeah, and if they need help, we're happy to help them. They help us. There's excellent working relationship there.
All right, so you need to read the resolution.
The other thing I want to note is there is some things that are not complete, that we can't complete because the state goes through this process kind of uniquely.
It's kind of backwards. We have to acknowledge that we're going to apply for the grant from the DOJ. By November 11th, they tell us whether we're awarded the grant and how much the grant is. The problem with this whole issue is we have to start some, like this resolution early to catch it on the county board meeting. So it kind of flows a little backwards. Basically, the substance of the grant is going to be the same as it was last year. With respect to, we have to update and change the statistics and stuff like that.
And to add one more wrinkle, because I'm aware of this on the legislative side, is there's actually a statutory requirement that the grant be offered to the tribe and to the county as part of it was legislation that was drafted back in 2002 that identifies the Lacutere as a recipient of this funding, which is supposed to help provide assistance with law enforcement. So yeah, that's exactly why it's backwards, because the allocations there under the Joint Finance Committee, but the tribe and the county need to be ready to receive the funds for the purposes of law enforcement without interfering with the authority of DOJ. So, anyway, Mr. Buckles.
So do we need to rewrite this resolution then before we can pass it?
The resolution actually is the standard language from the previous resolutions. I'm just making sure because I got questions about a month and a half ago about the interplay between the deputies and the conservation wardens. And I didn't have a chance to talk to the sheriff because of all the different things that were going on, but it had since been resolved. So I wanted to make sure that I understood from the sheriff what the role, how conservation wardens are being recognized. And I didn't want this to be something read as prohibiting the recognition of the conservation wardens. Second thing is the edits that are in here are not substantive. They're just typos. And so you don't need to change the resolution. We have a resolution here that we'll need to sign, which needs to be signed by, for those who are in support of the resolution, we'll need to sign it. If you don't support it, you don't have to sign it. You just have to have a form to send it up to the county board, which is the procedural responsibility of this committee as according to the committee rules. My question is, and does someone have to read the resolution? It's not that I'm against it, it's just.
We've never read
It's
them
not
before.
common practice.
It's not the practice.
Not common.
All right. Any other questions regarding the resolution? Ms. Williamson.
I will make the corrections, and then if everybody just wants to stop in and sign the corrected copy.
Okay. Mr. Buckholz?
Okay, I make a motion to approve the resolution with the changes in wording.
All right, so I have a motion for Mr. Buckholz approving the resolution with the two edits that were discussed in committee.
I'll second it.
I have a second for Mr. Van Etten. In discussion, Chuck, do you have any questions about this resolution?
Nope, just basically, if I can put it in a nutshell, it's the same thing that was happening last year. We're moving forward and we have to do this so in order to make it happen. So it's really not anything, it's just something carrying forward, correct?
A little bit like that. Essentially, we have to have a resolution recognizing that we have a cooperation with the Lukutare tribe in order to be able to be eligible to receive the funds and in order to fund the deputy. But it's not really a deputy, it's just making sure that there's deputy services that are available to the county under what is the public law 280 jurisdictional question that exists. So
Okay.
it's a long-standing practice. It's a formality that needs to go through every year because of the budget allocation. Does that help you, Mr. Van Etten?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify. We're good.
Okay. Any other questions or any other comments in discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So just for reminder, all public safety, you need to sign the resolution. If you can't do it before the 10th, then make sure that you're ready to sign that resolution on the 10th because the board can't review it until there's a proper signature that's presented that's signed. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department. We're now moving on to the coroner's report. Is the coroner still on the call with us?
I am.
Floor is yours, sir.
All right. Well, as you can see in my report, we've been kind of updating the coroner's office to prepare for COVID. Getting my my deputies some uniforms so that they don't have to go in their street clothes to these deaths. Another thing that we've been dealing with a lot, like the judge says, we have a very bad heroin fentanyl issue going on. That my numbers might not match up with the sheriff's. That's just because I don't get all the deaths, because anytime they get flown out to Minnesota, or even for the rare cases going to Michigan for some reason, those coroners take over those cases, so they don't count on my rolls. Jim is there to talk about a death we recently had that's actually a little concerning to my office, and it actually should be concerning to basically the whole of the county because of what they kind of walked into. So I'll let him talk about that. If you look at the graph that I got, that comes off the Wisconsin Department of Health website. that kind of shows that, you know, we're not, the darker the color, the worse it is. So in the purple is the deaths. We're not the worst in deaths yet, but if you look at hospitalizations, we're up there with, you know, Madison, Milwaukee, La Crosse area per capita. And that kind of tells us a lot because we don't even know all the overdoses that make it to the hospital that die. You know, because they don't report that to me. I don't know if they report that to the sheriff or not. So that's something I kind of want to get with the hospital on and see what the actual numbers of Sawyer County residents that die of drug overdoses are. It'd be something I'm going to work on. And with that, I'll let the rest go to Jim.
You state your name for the record and then share your report.
Jim Onerheim, deputy coroner for Sawyer County. I've been involved with this for many years, 15 years, I think it's been. On a week ago today, on Thursday, I was asked to respond to a death in Radisson. And the property itself, in my estimation, was perhaps one of the worst, actually, I will say, probably the worst that I've been in 40 years. I've been in the fire service down in Eau Claire, and of course CMS up here and fire up here. And I'm very concerned about walking into a situation like we had last Thursday because of a health issue. There was garbage in this home from one end to the other. It's the most animal feces that I have ever seen in one property. There was over 12 cats, one dog, and this person had been deceased, in my estimation, probably about 3 weeks at least. Good thing it was cold, because that preserves the body. I had a case east of there this summer where it was in the middle of the summer, and that was bad also. But with this situation, and I'll just pass one photo I printed out last night, almost ran out of ink in front of that, but I just wanted to show you at least one photo. Every room was identical, the same as what you see in this picture here. It's definitely unsafe for firefighters. Let's say they had a fire in that place and very easily something could have gotten started. And firefighters had to enter because let's say the neighbor says, hey, there's a lady in there, you have to help get her out. They make entry and they have to walk through stuff like that and on their hands and their, you know, feet walking through with a hose line, trying to get to the seat of the fire, try to rescue a person out of there. Very easily it could be death for a firefighter. Because if you have to get out of there in a hurry, there's no way you get out of there in a hurry, go to a window or whatever. Law enforcement, if they had to respond to a call in a place like that, I don't even know if somebody'd want to even go in there. The smell was so bad. Long story short, I was involved, and again, I don't like bringing up what I did, but it's all part of your experiences over your career. I was involved with a committee in Eau Claire called the Hazardous Living Condition Committee. That's still going on, and actually it is expanded big time. They've changed the name, and of course the name now is Community Risk Reduction. And that is something that's looked at nationally. The National Fire Academy has a class on training individuals if they want to be the lead in community risk reduction, which deals with a nuisance type ordinance, which this is kind of the ordinance that they passed where they are allowed to go into single family homes. If it's too bad, placard goes up immediately. Place gets placarded, person's got just a few hours to gather their things and they have to get out. You work with public health, you work with family social services, you get them a place to stay, but the place has to be cleaned up. It's a life-threatening situation for not only them, but everybody that might possibly respond there. Hoarding issues, that's another thing. And of course you could say this is hoarding. No, it's not, this is garbage in this particular property.
There's a hoarding task force that Eau Claire's got now also, that they group of people that work underneath the community risk reduction individual. And Al Bertrand, a very good friend of mine, worked with for many years. He's in charge of this, and plus he's also the lead inspector down. Again, work with the health department. When we have a committee like this, you have a representative from fire, EMS, public health, city attorney or district attorney, or of course DA's office, sheriff's department, and building inspector. And it's just a matter of getting together. Where do we go? What decision do we have to make on this particular property? Because it's unsafe for our public health and our workers here locally. If you see something, basically you got to do something, because that could be a liability too if something happens. He also takes on something else, which we got so many lakes up here. It's a water safety task force, making sure that all our waterways are somewhat safe. And you may think, well, that's the DNR. And no, it's not. The DNR has a program right now. It's a life jacket loaner program where they work with a community risk reduction specialist, where they put life jackets at some of the boat landings. And you think, well, they're going to get stolen if you just leave them there and it's an honor system. John says, you know, we thought that too. But you'd be surprised how many people have maybe an older life jacket, whatever, they hang it up there. He says, we have gained life jackets over the years. But DNR's on their website, they got that program where you can get involved with it. It doesn't cost you. So anyway, it's just something that I want to bring your attention, and I think definitely we should do something about it and not just ignore it. I would be more than happy to get involved and do as much as I can, because I'm always been a firm believer. You get a lot out of your community. Now it's time to reciprocate. I want to try to give back. And seeing I'm living up here right now, I'll do anything and everything I can to help this community. And if it's something like that, if I can bring some expertise in or whatever, be glad to do it. So it's something, if you want to put it on the agenda for the future, I'd be more than happy to bring maybe John or Al Bertrand in, and I'll tell you, he knows a whole lot about it. He can enlighten you on it, and then you can decide for yourself what direction you want to go. Another little thing, keep thinking about that there's a thing called Project Impact. In fact, I got my coffee cup from this. I've had it for years. That's President Clinton introduced that nationally. And that was another project that I got involved with, where you make your community disaster resistant. And there's extra money available. And you are, and again, I can't really say if this project is still going yet or not, but when we got involved with it and finished getting certified in it nationally, if we have a natural disaster, we're basically taking care of first before anybody else, because we've done everything we can to make our community disaster resistant. Another thing I'd be more than happy to get involved and help you with. So anyway, that's hopefully we can clean things up a little bit somehow, some way, and I'll throw it in your lap and just let me know if I can do anything.
Any questions on the coroner's report from any of the committee members? Chuck, do you have any questions for the coroner?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Hoff, are you still on the call with us?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Hoff, I'm going to ask that you get in contact with Ms. Roker, our corporate counsel, to research the proposed committees that Mr. Unnerum has offered up. And I would ask that this be placed on a future agenda item. I don't know if it'll be for next month or not. Want a chance to look at what these ordinances and what these committees would look like, and then bring that back for a discussion, and then give the various department heads, the Sanchez, the sheriff, probably Mr. Dunstan, an opportunity to kind of review this before we put it into a larger discussion. But Mr. Unnerum and Mr. Frommel, your concerns are noted, and the committee will pick this up. It's on the radar. So anything else for the coroner's report? Thank you for your report. Moving on now to Criminal Justice Coordinating Council update. We're in the midst of trying to set up a meeting. We are kind of walking into the trial heavy month of November. We did have some progress, some initial progress with the tribe in terms of financial support, and that will be indicative of how quickly we can sign the contract with Justice Point and have them assuming the duties that had been left vacant with the departure of Ms. McNamer with her retirement. And after that meeting is conducted with the CJCC, I'll have a cleaner report to provide to the committee and to the full county board. Essentially, Justice Point would take over the different elements. There's the pre-bond or the bond testing, some of the jail programming issues, and the electronic monitoring and some of those other aspects that we've been trying to implement to decrease the jail population. Unfortunately, and we've heard this from different departments, the meth and heroin issues that have been plaguing the county have not been impacted by COVID, and it's probably been the other ways that it's strengthened the impact on our communities, and deaths are rising. So this remains an issue that needs to be addressed, and that's the purview of the Criminal Justice Coordinating update. Mr. Judge Yackel.
Is that meeting been set yet?
It's been proposed, and we're still waiting to see what your docket looks like. We're looking at November 10th at noon.
Okay.
And depending on what your docket is, I've gotten preliminary approval from most of the committees.
Well, that's a Tuesday, correct?
That's a Tuesday.
Well, at the noon hour, as long, I mean, I generally, that's our busy day with the intake, it's a super heavy day, but generally we've been free over the lunch hours. So as long as you know, I might not be there immediately at the beginning, but I will be there. I'd say go ahead and set that date if that's what you want. If you're waiting for me.
Well, we're not exactly waiting for you, but you are instrumental. We're also, so I think we're looking at the courtroom as the host for that, or we're looking at the assembly. Assembly room. So
okay.
The closer we get, the better we'll know what those dates are. We're still waiting for the tribe to.
I'll make it work as best I can.
Right. And so anyway, that's the update. Is there any other questions regarding that? Chuck, you got any questions regarding CJCC?
I do not. Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think the tentative dates, the 9th and 10th, Justice Point tentatively would come up on the 9th and talk to the Tribal Governing Board. Is Monday afternoon better than Tuesday at noon? I mean, we can look at that as well.
Okay, we can probably put that in circulation and see what that looks like. The judge is departed, so
okay.
We don't have an immediate response on that.
Yeah, the objective is trying to get that scheduled before the county board meeting on Tuesday, so that we can present something there if need be.
Okay, we'll work on that. Nate, you're up.
All right, so I just have a couple of things. Like I said, I do have my report submitted. One thing yesterday, which I think most of you already know, is that was First Responder Appreciation Day yesterday. So I just want to say thank you for everybody that's around the table as part of our team, because we have a great group of first responders. They'll do anything for you, either fire, EMS, or law enforcement agency. Also, our call volume is down a little bit, but it's actually much appreciated because of COVID. There are so many signs and symptoms. They're so vague with COVID that every single time you have to prepare that your patient might be COVID positive. And now that we're starting to see it more in the community, we're risking a lot more when we come up on a lot of these things. The other thing I do want to cover quick is that we're going to start doing our outreach, our community outreach initiative for AEDs, and going around and checking all the AEDs, trying to make sure the batteries are all good. So one thing that Eileen did before she passed away is she helped us get a registry of all the AEDs, or most of the AEDs that are in the county.
What are AEDs? What are AEDs?
AEDs, automatic external defibrillators.
Jump starter.
Yep. So other than that, that's really all we've been kind of working on. We have been working a little bit with the Fire Association and trying to get the fire department's EMR groups up and running.
As of a week ago, we do have Town of Hayward, Excellent, Round Lake Fire Departments have completed their licensing process, so they're up and running. I think we have a couple more there looking at it, Spider Lake, Bass Lake, and Elsinore. So hopefully we can get them through with the state. That's all I have.
Any questions for Mr. Dunstan?
I do.
Buffalo.
Nate, when you check the AEDs, whose do you check? I mean, we have one like at our Head Start Center up here. Do you also check them?
We had no problem doing it. The problem that we had last year, we didn't know where all of them were.
Okay.
So that's why Eileen and the group of volunteers that Sheila had been working with are instrumental. And that was one of our big problems that we had. So we have a whole listing and I just have to check because we're going to try to go through as many as we possibly can. Contact the businesses, go, hey, would you mind if we come in? We're not going to purchase the stuff for you, but at least we can check them. Because a lot of people don't realize that pads expire, batteries go bad, so it's a good time to kind of do that. We will, on the ones that we have out in the community, the Sawyer County ones, we'll go through and replace all that stuff.
Because I don't believe the Head Start ones get checked. I don't check it. I don't know who's checking it. So I never see anybody go in there and look at it. So I would like to find out if it'd be okay if you guys come in and check it. That way we know somebody's checking.
Like I said, we put out a thing last year, we were calling businesses and whatever else, trying to get them to see, they're okay with us coming in. But I know a lot of the schools, they check their own and have either the health nurses or whoever that do that. But church organizations, church groups, I mean, just about every church has one now. So we're just trying to do that outreach and go, you know what, we have no problem. We have both end crews, we have medic cutters, they can come out and do it. I can do it, so it's just, that's one thing that we really want to push for our cardiac arrest survivors.
So I'll probably see the regional manager tomorrow and I'll ask her about that and then I'll get in touch with her. Yep. Because I believe that they should be able to go for that because they say, I don't believe anybody's checking. Yep. Okay, thank you.
I guess, is there a possibility of seeing a list? I mean, in town of Draper, we have one for sure at the town shop.
That one is ours.
Okay.
Nate, I'd be more than happy to put together a public service announcement, PSA, for paper and the radio stations here in town. You can sign it, put it on your letterhead and everything, if it helps you out. Possibly maybe somebody would call them and say, yeah, I got one that we never knew about. If you'd like me to do it, I'd be more than happy to.
We would appreciate it.
Chuck, you got any questions for Mr. Dunstan?
I do. And my question, I'm not sure, you just happen to be the next contestant up. So with the COVID-19 and everything that's going on for first responders, my question is, what is our policy? What are we doing when someone has exposure and we're requiring them to quarantine for 14 days? Are we still paying these individuals because we need to be, if they're on the front line and then they get this possible exposure or what have you, and this could happen over and over? What are we doing right now as far as like the ambulance? What are we doing if you have someone that you have to quarantine? Are we still compensating them?
The short answer is yes. We do have a little bit of a limit though, because as most people know, the CARES Act or CARES Fund for FMLA did not go for essential employees. So law enforcement, us, fire. However, the county did put aside money. There's 80 hours that you don't have to use for your sick time for that, for exposures, or when you have to isolate. And then we also do have our usual sick vacation. And I believe the county will be, or from what I understand, and maybe Tom can help me or if Rose is on, they will also let you go into the negative and then get you through that. So we're not trying to penalize anybody, but yes, your point is very valid that, we can see 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 exposures, and it's a continuous thing. We do have one employee right now that has been on the 3rd exposure and is thoroughly quarantined for that. So But trying to figure all that out, a lot of that is done not only with us, but with also with public health and their recommendations, because they read everything. The stuff is always changing. So a lot of times we have to go by what, public health wants us to do too. Does that, I know that might muddy the answer a little bit.
Yeah, I just need clarification. So year to date for your ambulance and the running of the organization, how many exposures have there been and how many people have had to quarantine?
I don't have the exact number, but I want to say we've had 5 or 6 people that have been out up to this point in time.
Okay, and so out of these 5 or 6 people, has anybody got to the point where they've exhausted all the avenues of being compensated? Are we getting to a point where, and I get that we're going to let them say have future, but this should not be coming out of personal leave, I would think, because of the fact that they have no choice. This is their job. They're first responders. And this could be also for the sheriff. I don't know how many of his people have also been, exposed and people in the jail and whatnot. We're going to have to come up with something if this is going to be the new normal, that if these people are required to work every day and be on the front lines, this should not be coming out of their own personal vacation and sick time. There has to be something with this.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hoff.
Yeah, this is a subject we can address more fully. This is one of the topics that we talk about a great deal for essential workers and non-essential workers, and how do we compensate and that sort of thing. So we can either put that on the admin agenda for discussion, because we do have some policies that we initiated for handling these types of situations. And maybe even in the Tuesday evening, still Tuesday evening, the Health and Human Services, I believe Mr. Van Etten is on that as well. Maybe we could have Julia in her presentation just kind of cover something about that as well, just to give you some more background. There's some misinformation out there circulating on social media, and so we can help, clarify some of those points.
Well, one of the things I want to, stemming from Chuck's question, and I'm going to ask the sheriff and the different heads for next month's report, if you could put in information about any type of lost time or any type of time that was for the operation of the department that had to be either quarantined or someone had to be separated. I don't need names, we don't need medical diagnosis, but we just have an idea of how this kind of situation is impacting your operation levels. If we can include that, if you got jailers that are being quarantined, deputies, EMS, who else do we have on here? I don't know. We really need to get to the judges or the DAs. But if there's something that we can do, maybe Sanchez can also include in her report. If there's anybody who's under the department that has been quarantined and that has interrupted their staffing, we can get some kind of information like that included, so that this is something that we have available and that we are in a position as supervisors to respond to the general comments, community comments about COVID, because even though we have an election coming up next Tuesday, I have a feeling that this COVID rhetoric is going to remain prevalent in our communities for a while after that election. So I think having that information will help them as a way of providing a service. Chuck, is that kind of consistent with what you're looking at?
Yes, absolutely. If we're gonna, and this is a national pandemic, and if this is going to be the new normal, and I hate to use that phrase, this coin phrase, but at the same time, this should not be the person's responsibility to extinguish their vacation and sick time, because they have no choice but to carry on. So, yep, absolutely.
Any other questions for Mr. Dunstan? Thank you for your report, sir. Moving on now, Mr. Peters has jumped in with both feet. We have an agenda item about the fire coverage, fire protection for the town of Draper. Mr. Peters, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, on October 12th, the town clerk for the town of Draper, Elizabeth Klein, announced to the public and the board that she and her husband, Chris Klein, had resigned from the Draper Loretta Fire Department over training and safety concerns. They had joined the fire department approximately 3 years ago and had made very energetic efforts to become trained and to meet state mandated standards. But over the period of time since they came on the fire department, they were becoming more and more concerned about the apparent attitude within the fire department, and thus they felt that they had to resign because of personal safety and inability to respond with a full complement of trained personnel to a fire call in the town of Draper. I don't want to get into personalities, but we're all living in an area that has a skewed demographic pyramid, and we have a lot of very elderly people, which makes it difficult for fire departments to enlist new recruits and also to have people trained up to standards and to be able to actually respond with the appropriate gear to fires where they may have to even enter the building, and with the issues that Mr. Onnerheim brought up with regard to some buildings, this even compounds that issue. I'm not sure exactly how to proceed with this. We have, as I understand, I have not spoken to the town of Winter, the fire department in Winter, but I understand that there have been conversations between the fire chief from the town of Draper, Mr. Paul Zmuda, and also the fire department in Winter, and they're aware of the issue. But that puts any fire response an additional 12 miles, a minimum of 12 miles away, farther away from anything that happens in Draper. Is this a problem with other, I don't know, is this a problem with other fire departments in our area?
So let me help a little bit with this one. The scope of the responsibility of public safety, we don't have too much authority to kind of involve ourselves with town issues. And I think that the fire departments are contracted through the townships. And I think we provide policy guidance in terms of operations and cooperation among the different townships. And so I don't know if this committee or the board has the ability to address the fire issue other than encouraging the townships to have a conversation. We do have a lot of volunteer fire people actually on this committee that can probably speak a little bit more clear to the issue. It sounds like your question is, what is Town of Draper's response to a coverage issue? And with that, I'll open that up to the floor for discussion. We just have to be careful about what the authority of the committee is, and making sure that we manage expectations, because we don't want to step on the toes of the different townships in terms of their responsibility, nor do we want to create an expectation that the county is gonna come in and have a solution for fire protection. It is an important issue, but there's a reason why we don't have fire departments reporting public safety is because we don't have that type of authority to provide that kind of direction.
Okay.
So with that, Mr. Buckholz or anybody else who has more experience with this than I would in terms of
Well,
township.
yeah, I believe what Mr. Peters is talking about is this boils down to be a town board problem. Because they oversee the fire department and being short-handed, if anybody knows where Draper is, like I do, it's hard to get your people, like Ed was saying. But anyway, like I said, I don't believe there's anything the county can do. It's got to go back to your Draper Town Board and discuss there. And if they're not getting the training that they need, that's got to come through the departments, fire department, because like Exland and Winter, those people, I don't know about these over here so much, but they have their own trainings that they do to keep updated. So I'm not sure how Draper goes about it, but I think that's where they're going to have to go back to is the town board and see what they can come up with.
Any other comments on the issue raised by Mr. Peters? John Ryan, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I've had lengthy discussions with him on this, and I was doing some research, and the best I can tell at this point, I think Chapter 66 and the codes out of Madison Department of Health and Human Services, that anyway, they talk about this, but they don't specifically say it's exactly, I think, pretty much the way you said. The county doesn't have to per se, it falls back on the township itself. I was doing some research last night, but then at 10 o'clock, I shut off the computer. I didn't have time to complete it. I talked to a good friend of mine, Rick Peters. He's our fire safety coordinator for this whole area of Northwest Wisconsin. Rick is very knowledgeable. He's actually the fire chief in Canot. I lean on him a lot, for information. And he gave me a couple of the chapters of research that he didn't think either that the county on a county level, outside of just supporting them, supporting all the departments, like, we do support, we'd like to say that everyone's looking for volunteers, everyone, all the departments in this area, they need adequate training. Please support your local fire department with training, and if anyone is interested in getting involved, please contact your fire chief or whatever. Keep it generic, but again, yeah, I'd like to be able to say that someplace it falls on the county, but everything I've read so far, it does not. And Rick didn't think so either, but he didn't have the actual paragraph out of the chapters where he could point it out. So,
Mr. Hopper, you still on the call with us?
Yes, I am.
I would ask if you could coordinate with our corporate counsel to propose this question to her, if she could come back with a response of the limitations and expectations of the county and potentially public safety in terms of involving itself, or the jurisdictional questions about the fire departments for the county and the townships, and provide some edification in terms of what those roles are.
Will do.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions for Mr. Peters on this issue on the agenda? Chuck, do you have any questions?
No, but I do believe there's like a chain of command. We have mutual aid. We help anybody that within that mutual aid. But as far as growing pains, that board would have to come as an entity to this entity asking for some kind of help. And even then, I don't know what can be done and not done.
one other thing, what it does say in the statute is that townships have to provide fire service and of course EMS. But as far as fire service, it can be contracted through another department. You can have your own department. It doesn't say how big or how small, but also it says it encourages a lot of mutual aid, meaning they can draw from Winder, they can draw from Round Lake, they can draw from Radisson, have agreements set up. It encourages that. And like, for instance, the town of Round Lake, town of Hunter does not have a fire department, but the town of Round Lake that I live in, we take care of all of it. We do the inspections and we do all the fire protection. If there's a 911 call in the town of Hunter, we get paged out immediately. There's no delay in it. It's just like if it was right next to the fire station, same way. So that's other things. In this case, they got their own fire department. So again, many mutual aid agreements.
Well, I just want to make sure that it's clearly stated, because this meeting is a matter of open records and public comment, public access, that Town of Draper does have services that are available. This is just a question in terms of a staffing issue. It's not a question of coverage. We don't have parts of the county that are not protected by other aspects of the county. And this is just a procedural aspect to find out what is the jurisdictional responsibilities to arise with questions that came up from the Town of Draper. And so Mr. Hoff has been given instructions to consult with corporate counsel to define what their roles and expectations of the county. I think there's a lot of people who probably have a better understanding of that already. And Town of Draper, if there's any other questions that they would have, they should probably come through the normal procedures as proposed by Mr. Van Enten to bring something from them if there's any kind of issues of coverage. But there's no glaring needs of or lack of coverage provided right now. So, anything else on this issue? All right, moving on to number 17, day and time of public safety meeting discussion and possible action. So with the resignation of Ms. Dennis and the ascension of Mr. Peters to serve on the committee, the question about the date and time of this meeting has been brought forward again for discussion. A little bit of history about the history of or the meeting time of this meeting. The meeting time of this committee was it originally occurred on Tuesdays at 8:30 in the morning, but because of the fact that the intake for the judge's docket is on Tuesdays, there was a significant portion of the agenda that would have been either tabled or not able to participate because of that. And so it was switched to the Thursday, to the current meeting time of Thursday. And so for Mr. Peters, for Mr. Van Etten, I think there's like 7 or 8 subcommittees of the county board that meets, and they call it committee week. And that's when the committees will meet with the various departments that provide services to the county. And so they try to plug in those times, and so that we don't create an undue burden on the regular employees, including the sheriff's department. And so in the scheme of things, public safety meets first for the month, and then the other committees meet the subsequent week to have their monthly meetings. And then there's a county board meeting at the end, which kind of culminates the meeting schedules for the county supervisors and the oversight. So one of our committee members has a time challenge on Thursday morning at 8:30, and they're asking for to revisit the meeting time for this committee. Mr. Hoff has been notified and is on the phone. We're looking at alternate times. Tuesdays are going to be difficult, straight up. Other committee members have been asked to look at their schedules to see what their availability is. And so today, right now, we're going to open the floor up to discussion on whether or not we want to keep it this time, or if there's an alternative time that this committee can meet, that we do that. The 2 things I want to have the committee members to be aware of is that we're asking for county employees to free up their schedules to come to this time. So we try not to do this in the evenings unless we absolutely have to, because then we start looking at overtime considerations, and that we just be mindful that we have people coming in. People are busy during the weeks. So with that being said, Chuck, is there a time that works in your schedule? And then I'll go through and ask each committee member the same question.
Anytime except 8:30. This is very difficult, and during the summer it's been very difficult to get here at 8:30. Luckily, I mean, one of the side effects of the COVID is that we're allowed Zooming and we're allowed so many meetings. But once this ends, I need to attend to these, and there's no way I can attend. I have over 20 employees that I start at 6 a.m. I have Zoom meetings at 8, Microsoft Teams at 8:30, and it goes on and on. So anything I can push, I don't care of the day, anything I can push the time. So 9, 10, 11, 12, anytime during the day is better than the 8:30 start.
So we should anticipate public safety meetings to be about 2 hours. So if there's a 2-hour block to have people available on their schedules, you should think about that in that area. So Chuck, is there a day during the week that is better in terms of your schedule availability, and what times would be the better, more ideal times for you?
I have these meetings every day of the week. So the day doesn't really make a difference for me. It's just the time.
And what time would that be? What 2-hour block would be better?
Anything past the 8:30 is like my busiest time that I'm getting everybody in these 17 or these 10 counties rolling. So anything past, if 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, anytime.
So after 9 o'clock on a day during the week. Mr. Slater, what is your schedule availability, and what do you feel comfortable with?
I'd like to just leave it the way it is. I mean, I'm sorry, it doesn't accommodate everybody, but this is the best time and day for me.
Okay. So Mr. Slater does not want it, it feels better with this time slot. Mr. Peters, what is your schedule and availability?
Well, right now, it's quite open in terms of availability. I guess, is there a particular week that when all of these would occur, so that
it's usually the first? Tom, you can help. Tom, Mr. Hoff, if you're still with us, you can help me with that committee week designation.
Yeah, so the county board is the third Thursday of the month. And so the committee week, designated committee week, is the week before that. So sometimes it's, the first week of the month, sometimes the second week of the month. It all depends on when that Thursday falls within the calendar month. So the third Thursday is county board. Committees are the week before that. Public safety is, 2 Thursdays before the county board meeting currently. So if you wish to schedule your public safety meeting during that committee week, we've got other committees meeting that week as well. So Monday morning is economic development at 8:30. So that time slot after economic development on Monday or anytime Monday afternoon is open. All of Tuesday is open, except that's bad for court personnel. Wednesday morning, we have land committee at 8:30. So, the time frame after that, like 10:30 or afternoon works. But it would have to be either of those times, since finance and admin are on that Thursday before the board. And so anything that gets adopted in these committees that needs to go to finance or admin prior to county board, would have to go, before, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of committee week.
For me, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are available basically all day long. I would just have to make other appointments around the schedule of this meeting.
Buckholz, I know you have a little bit tighter.
Yes, I know Chuck wants to attend these, and the time we got right now is not good. I like to agree with Dale, I like to keep it there. But I also think that we could keep it as the first Thursday of every month and run it from 12:30 to 2:30 in the afternoon. That, I'm free for that 2 hours. But I don't know, we wouldn't be moving it, only the time slot.
Mr. Streeter, how does that? I know that you prefer to have this, but is there flexibility in your schedule for later in the day?
Not that late, no. But did Chuck say that 9 o'clock would be okay on the same date that we're doing now? Okay, if we can start at 9, I can live with that.
Chuck, what about 9 o'clock on the same day?
Yeah, anything's better. 8:30 is just not a good time.
So if we started at 9 o'clock on that Thursday?
The same Thursday that we do now.
Same Thursday, start at 9 instead of 8:30?
Unless we can get out of here by 10:30, because I got a route at quarter to 11.
What about Monday later in the morning? Econ will go, usually goes from 8:30 till about, I don't know, 9:30 or 10. So if we did 10 o'clock on Mondays, is that something that would work? Later?
Mondays aren't good. Mondays are usually taken up. We did have community action meetings.
All right, well, it's almost 10 now. If we started later, you would have to be out here by 10:30. Or does your route start at 10:30?
Well, I do my pre-trip at 10:30 and my route starts at quarter to 11.
Well, how about this? Mr. Hoff, what do you think about starting later on the same Thursday?
That works for us.
Would you tell me if it doesn't?
Oh, that works.
All right, let's try December and January. We'll start the meeting at 9 o'clock. And Chuck, if we start at 9 o'clock, does that give you the opportunity to come to the meeting? Or that just makes it easier for you to virtually participate?
It's going to be easier to virtually participate. The off season for me is this time that we're starting to slow down. The big push for the dig season is ending. And so I will have more free time and I will be able to attend meetings in person. That is my goal. It is very difficult to do this through Zoom, but it is what it is. 9 o'clock is better than the 8:30. And so the only alternative I have is then to get with the chairman if we can't move it and maybe come off this committee and see if I can't get on a committee that goes in the evening. And like, you know, I didn't know when I got picked for this committee, I had no idea the times. I assumed these meetings went at night. And so now I know different. And so I appreciate any kind of change or move of that half hour will make a big difference for me.
Well, the one thing that we need to take into consideration is that the full board temporarily suspended virtual participation in light of COVID, and that's not a permanent change. So there's an expectation that supervisors will make an active effort to participate in the meetings. COVID changes all of that because we've got these COVID challenges, but that's not a question that we need to solve today. So today's the November meeting, for the December meeting and for the January meeting, we will start at 9 o'clock instead of 8:30. And Madam Clerk, if you could make sure that the record reflects that. I know that we'll be transitioning out, so probably need to hand that out to your is it predecessor? Successor. Mr. Hoff, if you can notify the committees, let him know that we're gonna have a later start time, but it'll still be the same date and time for the committee. And then in January, we'll put this back on the agenda to see if this is working, and then have a better discussion in terms of what participation is and what the expectations are. Chuck, does that help you with your inquiry?
Absolutely.
Mr. Schleter, do you have anything much to add?
Thanks.
Mr. Peters?
No, so it is the second Thursday of the month or the
First Thursday.
It's the first Thursday of every month.
Okay, so
Mostly, it's
the third of December.
It's 2 Thursdays before the county board.
Okay.
So that's about as clear as mud. And we all rely on our email. So if you don't have email, welcome to the 20th and 21st century. Carol just sent out a meeting notice. Make sure that you read that and adjust your calendars accordingly. You do have a responsibility. As much as we have to try to respect our own individual calendars, we do have a larger responsibility to our districts and to each other to participate as much as we can. So Mr. Peters, just make sure that you coordinate with Mr. Hoff and Ms. Williamson to help with your schedule in terms of going forward. Mr. Buckles, any other questions?
Yes, you're taking a half hour away. You're not gonna get these meetings done in an hour and a half. I'd like to stay here for the whole friggin' meeting.
Let's just give us the trial run for December and for January, and we'll see where we're at. If we need to adjust, we will. If we cannot meet this to the satisfaction of this committee, we'll revert back in February, back to this normal meeting schedule. And if we have to adjust this based on that, I understand everyone's time constraint. This is something that, you know, it's been ingrained and we've got everyone relying on this, but we also have the responsibility to everyone who's been elected. I mean, that's our job. And so I appreciate everyone's flexibility to help along for this discussion, and then we'll revisit the issue again in February. Any other questions regarding this issue? I want to thank the committee for being flexible for even considering this. This is unorthodox, but we're trying our best to accommodate for everyone's participation. With that said, is there any future agenda items from the committee? Is there any other items for discussion only from the committee or from anybody that's present in the meeting? All right, well, Mr. Peters, welcome aboard. Hope you had a nice introduction to public safety. Everybody else, this meeting is adjourned, and I want to thank everyone for their flexibility, cooperation, and patience. The meeting here.